Now, moving on in the issue of enforced disappearances in particular, and what has come up in the discussion so far, and anyone who's worked on this issue or engaged with the broader area in Pakistan or elsewhere, knows that probably out of all human rights violations, enforced disappearances or missing persons, as we call them in Pakistan, is perhaps the most heartbreaking one. It perhaps extracts a cost which has no parallel because of the lack of closure, because of the feeling of helplessness. And Amna Janjua Sahiba, now for many years, both symbolizes and personifies not only how the cost of losing a loved one to this crime of enforced disappearances, but also of the resolve that Rory was also talking about, alluded to, of victims, of families, of loved ones, to fight not only for their cause, but for the larger struggle. And with, I'd like to talk to Amna Sahiba.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Thank you so much. Thank you, AJ Conference, Asma Jahangir Foundation, AGHS, for organizing this beautiful 2 days conference, which has every aspect of human dignity involved in it. And I would like to congratulate the organizers of this conference. As this panel is all about enforced disappearances, extrajudicial killing, and so I would like to shed some light on my personal experience that I'm a victim of enforced disappearance. My husband, Masood Janjua, was a businessman and he was an educator. And he was traveling along with his friend on 30th July 2005 from Rawalpindi to Peshawar. On the way, they both disappeared, and to date, we have no information as to what happened to them. I have 3 children, 2 boys and 1 girl. They were very small at that time, and they have grown up all these years without the love and affection of their father. So that was the first thing which comes to anybody's mind whose loved one is taken away, and without giving any justification for it, without giving the reason why, what crime he has done. For all those whose loved one is taken away, they will never give up. We can die, but we cannot give up. So this is the problem with all the cases, all the victims of enforced disappearances, whose loved ones have been taken away, that they will continue for their whole life to get the news, get the truth, even if they have died. We have a right to know. Our children have a right to know if their father is no more. Where's the grave? Where should we go for offering Fatiha? Where's the symbol? Because it's easy to cope up with anybody whose loved one is died. But for those whose loved ones are disappeared, it's a lifelong agony. You can't even live, and you have to live. You can't even breathe, and you have to breathe. You have to continue in spite of every agony you face. And being a woman especially is more a torture, because in Pakistani society, women are supposed to be sheltered by their spouses, by their husbands. And same was the case with me. I was a housewife. I was a timid girl at that time. And I was sheltered by my husband. But then, when my husband was taken away, I had to become an activist. I had to come up. I had to become a fighter. And I had to tell the world that it is not acceptable. And for all those who cannot think of all those who have suffered like I have suffered. So there was no one in 2005. There was no one to raise a voice for it. And then, when I realized that there are so many other families who are running pillar to post and there's no one to help them even the parliamentarians were not ready to listen to them. What to say about the Supreme Judiciary and the lawyers? Of course, lawyers had to take fees. and they had no fees to offer. So I realized that I have to make a network of all the aggrieved families, and that was how it started. And we started sitting in front of the Parliament House and in front of the Supreme Court to make both the two Parliament and as well as the Supreme Court accountable. That what are you doing for the disappearances, which are occurring so rampantly? And it's ongoing since then. It's ongoing. It has not stopped. In the beginning, it was the war on terror, but now it has touched the lawyers who are raising voice for, or who are fighting the cases of the disappeared. Then there are the journalists who are covering the cases of the disappearances. Then also who are the dissenting voices, progressive voices, like the bloggers which were picked up. So this social media activists, anybody who does not agree with the state narrative can be picked up. So that fight has broadened, not just the war on terror, the nationalists of Balochistan, Sindhi activists, Sindhi political activists, all of them are getting disappeared, and it has grown since then and not stopped because the parliamentarians, the politicians thought it was the army's business. It's not an issue we should step into it, or else we will get into trouble. So that was why they stepped. They only raised voice, but then they did nothing. So finally, we have a political party, PTI, who raised this as a legislation. So this legislation was initially very good, not sufficient, but it adopted the same definition which was adopted by the United Nations Convention for the Protection of All Persons Against Involuntary Disappearance. So that was the good part, that the definition is the same, but it does not involve all the parts which need redress. Like there is no truth which will be given to those who have died. This is absolutely absent in this legislation. There is no area for compensation, reparation, guarantees for non-occurrence, because we have seen that there are cases when enforced disappearance happens and the person is released, and again he's disappeared. Again and again this thing continues. So it's the biggest torture on earth. And this another thing which was, when this law went to the Interior Committee, there were two new clauses which were added in this law. And one was that any of the enforced disappeared perpetrator will not be punished. Then second thing was that all those victims who are claiming falsely about the disappearance of their loved one and they cannot prove it will have a 5-year sentence and then a 1 lakh rupees fine. So I think this clause means that this law is not going to protect the victims, but rather it's going to protect the perpetrators. This law is completely, like crashes the whole victim's struggle. I'm not saying my struggle, but I'm saying all the victims from Balochistan, from Sindh, from KP, or all the struggles of the victims will be crashed after this. Because as soon as this law is going to pass, because I'm a very good friend of Shiri Mazari, and also I'm discussing this fact. And she's saying that if we are going to stress upon this clause, then maybe you are not going to get anything at all. So, but my reservation is that if we are not going to eliminate this clause from this law, then we'll be in a fix, and immediately after this law will be passed, then we will be punished for being the victim and for being the activists and defenders of this cause. So that is my concern, but what the question was, Sarup Saab, that have we achieved something? So my good practice is, like success story is that out of the 2,818 cases which have come to me in my organization, Defense of Human Rights, 900 of them have been released and traced. And still there's, so it only happened because of networking, because we were together, and we were active with the civil society, with the parliamentarians. We were all the time meeting Babar Saab when he was in the Senate as well, and even after that. And not just lobbying with the parliamentarians, with the top brass as well. I have touched their doors, I have knocked at their door, because they are the ones who have a hand in this. So how can we eliminate in our campaign? We can ask everybody and not the top brass, because they are actually the ones. And I think when I met the DG ISPR way back in 2019, maybe a lot was wrong, but one thing was positive in that he admitted that yes, there are disappearances and our heart goes out for that. So this is one, I would say, their commitment or their admission that Army has a hand in the disappearance of people. So it didn't work out because they have continued to say that many are disappeared on their own, and there's no way forward for them. But I will keep on knocking at their door as well as international community, which is very, very important in this cause. When I was given threats and my children were beaten, I was myself beaten in 2014. So what I realized was that when I was going to the UN's office, I was stopped and I was harassed and given that threat that if you try to go to the UN, we will not allow it. So now the cause is finished. I was told that the cause is finished because there are laws like Action in Aid to Civil Power Regulations and Pakistan Protection Act, which says that disappearances are allowed, they are legal. So when the disappearances are legal, then what am I doing in the streets of Pakistan? So I was given a very, very strong word bashing that your cause is finished. But I said that I am still aggrieved. My husband has not been given to me. That I will stay on the streets no matter what. And I will go to the international community. That was why I went to the Amnesty International, to the speaking tour of the Europe. I went to all the parliaments in Europe. And then I got affiliated with AFAD. And I thank them a lot because they were the ones who sustained us. Because, you know, you also have to have some resources to continue. So it's a very long pitch battle. You have to stay on the crease. Whether you are moving ahead with the speed of the snail or with the speed of a tortoise or with the speed of the rabbit. But you have to stay on the crease. So that's what we did. And I'm thankful to all the civil society people, all the lawyers who supported us, and especially the international community, the UN Working Group of the Enforced and Involuntary Disappearances, the UN Pakistan representatives who really helped us and guided us as to what to do. So later on in 2018, when the Supreme Court doors were closed for the victims, and after the Saqib Nisar gave the final order of transferring 700 cases of the disappeared to the Commission of Inquiry, which is a hellhole, I would say, clearly. There's no going ahead after you go to the commission. There are 200 plus cases whose production orders have been given, but there's no way forward for them because they were not produced and there's no hearing of their cases since then. So I would say that we have to move on no matter what. I'm thankful to the international community who, with their pressure and with their statements, when human rights defenders were attacked, they issued statements. They issued statements when our own members were kidnapped and they were disappeared. So there was reprisal for doing what I am doing. But now when I have started submitting cases, like 300 of our cases have been submitted to the working group. I'm not saying that they are with the pressure of the working group, they are all released, but I'm saying that with the pressure of this international involvement, our lives are a bit secure. And the threats and the harassment which was going on, they have stepped back. So this is the success we have to continue. And I would like to give message to the youth and the young lawyers that they have to come forward. It should be a mix of legal and campaign. Only legal will not work, and only campaign will not work. So it has always been in our success stories There are both the cases when in Myra Sajid case we campaigned, and also we had a case in the Islamabad High Court. We got the very good orders in which the compensation was awarded. That was the first time in the history of Pakistan that the case of disappeared was given. Almost as much as the salary of the disappeared was allowed for the family of Myra Sajid to be given to her from the day her husband was kidnapped. So these are the very good precedents which have been achieved by continuous struggle, legal as well as campaign. And that's it, I think. Thank you so much.